What is poppin' YouTube? Back again with another video. Today we're doing my top waiver wire ads for week 3 fantasy football. I'm traveling right now, so a little bit different background, but appreciate you guys for tuning in, and let's go. The first player you need to be adding in week 3 is Jordan Love. If you need any type of quarterback help, it's definitely got to be Jordan Love. When we look at what he's been doing the last 2 weeks, he's had 2 straight strong performances, both without Christian Watson. And this week, in week 2, he threw for 3 total touchdowns, totaling over 20 fantasy points in a loss to the Falcons. He now has 6 total passing touchdowns on the season without Christian Watson. Imagine adding Christian Watson back into this offense. That's all we're going to have to do to have Jordan Love continuing to be a super solid fantasy quarterback. Did we think that was going to happen? But Jordan Love, super solid option for us if we need quarterback help, especially with Anthony Richardson's injury. If you had Anthony Richardson, go see if Jordan Love is available for you on waivers. My second waiver wire ad is going to be Gus Edwards. Gussie boy Edwards, we were expecting Baltimore to maybe go out, add a Lenny Fournette, add a Kareem Hunt, but they didn't do any of that. Gus Edwards is currently owned in 31% of leagues, and this week against the Bengals, Gus Edwards comes out after the J.K. Dobbins injury, and Gus Edwards saw 10 total touchdowns to Justice Hill's 11, but he rushed for 62 yards and a score on a goal line rush. He kind of looks like the back that you want to own, the one that has touchdown upside, just the overall better running back in play for the Ravens. So if you need a running back help, go look at Gus Edwards. Moving on to our next waiver wire ad that I would be targeting is Tutu Atwell for the Rams. Last week we said Puka Nacua should be your number 1 waiver wire ad. People were saying, Caleb, it's a little crazy. I think I'm going to go for Kyren Williams. While Kyren Williams looks like an every week starter, Puka Nacua is looking like an absolute special rookie wide receiver. But Tutu Atwell in his own right is looking very good. Atwell put up some pretty impressive numbers. He produced 6 catches for 119 yards in the opener and followed that up with 7 catches for 77 yards against the tough 49ers defense. While all the attention is being drawn to Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell has been absolutely producing, and especially when Cooper Kupp does come back, Tutu Atwell will still have a role, especially as that deep stretching type wide receiver. And just imagine all the attention on Puka Nacua, all the attention on Cooper Kupp. It's going to be good things for my man Tutu Atwell. We move on to our 4th waiver wire ad, and we're going to be talking about Zach Moss for the Indianapolis Colts. Zach Moss returned from an injury arm, and he immediately took over the lead role. Deion Jackson, bye. Evan Hull, bye. It was the Zach Moss show. And especially now with us not knowing what's happening with Anthony Richardson. Now, Anthony Richardson did have those 2 rushing touchdowns, but that is enough for us to be excited for Zach Moss because he did come in. He saw 22 touches for 88 yards, and he scored a touchdown. Now, it did come against the Texans' awful run defense, but we still have to be excited for Zach Moss, and especially if Anthony Richardson is in concussion protocol for the next week, Zach Moss could have a huge role going forward, especially with us not knowing what exactly is happening with JT. We then move on to the next player that we should be targeting on our waivers, and that's going to be Jayden Reed for the Packers. We talked about our love for Jordan Love earlier, and how we think he's a great waiver wire ad. If you need a receiver help and you can't get Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua, of course, is off your waiver wire, then we will be targeting Jayden Reed because Christian Watson, we need to see him on the field healthy. Reed this week had 2 total touchdowns. He led all the Packers in receiving this week. If you've been on the channel for a minute, you would know that I told you that Jayden Reed was a must stash earlier on, right before week 1. We finally saw that emerge in week 2. Now, if Christian Watson comes back in week 3, are we a little bit worried about Jayden Reed? Yes, but if you have deeper roster space, maybe go see what it would take to go get Jayden Reed on your roster. Looks super explosive, and he has a really great connection with Jordan Love. We move on to our next waiver wire ad, and that's going to be Jake Fergenson for the Dallas Cowboys. Currently, right now, is only owned in 12.2% of leagues. He's not going to be an every week fantasy starter for you, but he can definitely provide some depth as your tight end on the bench. He looked really good against the Jets this week, and we always know the Dallas Cowboys always like to incorporate their tight ends, and it's always a guy that kind of comes out of nowhere. We look at the last 2 years, Dalton Schultz kind of came out of nowhere. So this year, it definitely could be Jake Fergenson, and that's a great potential person to add. And we're going to give you 2 more waiver wire deeper stashes that we should be considering. The first one's going to be Ty Chandler, who's only owned in 4.6% of leagues. Ty Chandler is the RB2 in the Minnesota Vikings offense, but what we do know about the Minnesota Vikings is Alexander Mattison absolutely did not look that good this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. While Alexander Mattison did get all the touches and we were excited about that, when it translates to 4 or 5 fantasy points, that's not going to cut it, especially in real life fantasy football. There's nothing that Alexander Madison's done to absolutely wow us. So we will be looking to add Ty Chandler just because we do know this Minnesota Vikings offense is valuable, and if we can get just a piece of that in that running back background, then we will definitely be targeting it. Moving on to another player that we'd be targeting is Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds has produced a very strong stat line, and what was a shootout here at Ford Field here yesterday against the Atlanta Falcons, where he produced 5 catches for 66 yards and 2 total touchdowns. I don't think that's going to be happening every week because they still have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, but with David Montgomery getting injured, this offense is probably going to be leaning a lot more on the pass next week, like it's kind of been doing each and every week. So we do like some Josh Reynolds if you need deep waiver wire stash. And my final player we're going to be talking about, because we also talked about how this guy was going to be a mustache at the beginning of the season, especially in waivers, could be a guy to target is Tank Dell. He made his presence known against the Colts, catching 7 passes for 72 yards with 1 total touchdown. And it sometimes takes these rookie wide receivers just a few games to get their beak wet. But like we like about Tank Dell, CJ Stroud absolutely wanted him in this offense, and so he definitely did produce this week. I will definitely be targeting Tank Dell if I need some wide receiver help. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you guys for tuning in today. No, this isn't our typical lighting, anything like that, but we're producing this content for you each and every day. So I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.